Welcome back to Internet Money, where we are talking shop with entrepreneurs who are building amazing companies. Today's interview is a little unique because the company we're talking to is not a digitally native company. It's not an internet company. However, these entrepreneurs have achieved every entrepreneur's dream, which is to have a big exit. Take that passion, take that idea, turn it into a product, scale it into a multi-million dollar company, and then have that big exit. Our interview today is with Tyler and Val. And not only are they powerhouse business partners, but they are actually a powerhouse married couple. I think you're going to see why they work so well together and why they are such a dynamic duo. You're going to see that Val is completely obsessed with perfecting her product and delivering an exceptional customer experience and really dialing that in for validation and just getting that retention and repeat orders in line, while Tyler is completely inspired and obsessed with systems and processes and is a lean manufacturer. Yes, even in creating pies, which is their company. You're going to hear all about it. They've been able to scale and build together a massive and wonderful company, which, like I said, has now exited for multi-millions. Enjoy today's interview. I think you're going to love it. Let's go back to 2016. Take us back. How did this all get started?
Well, it all started with, before 2016, I had been like dabbling in a lot of things, and Tyler was working for a company, and he's always had this entrepreneurial spirit. He was thinking about leaving meanwhile to do his own thing. And meanwhile, I had recipe blogs, and I wanted to get this chicken pot pie from this local company. And I was so excited about it. And I got this pot pie, and it was not very good. And I was really disappointed. And I thought, I could do this. And so I created a recipe for chicken pot pie, and I started Instagram, and I just started selling pot pies and hand pies out of my house in 2016. And before I knew it, I had so many customers, like friends and family, but also just strangers just showing up at my house and buying these products that I was making over and over again. And so Tyler and I were like, okay, he's sitting there trying to figure out a new business while I have customers coming to our house. And so we're like, let's do this for real. So.
Yeah, I think two things to follow up on that is one, it's important to get customers. It's a lot more important to get repeat customers. And that was the thing that kind of made me raise my eyebrows, is the amount of repeat people that kept coming back again and again. I was like, okay, well, obviously they love the product. They're coming every week, which is how she was selling it. And then number two, I was trying to explore different avenues in the online space, right? So I wanted to do some kind of I was trying to develop an app for these different things, right? And that was the business model I wanted to go, is get more into technology. And so pies and technology don't really mix, but we thought, well, hey, let's explore different business models to kind of sell, homemade food. So that's kind of the genesis.
So obviously you were selling to friends and family kind of in the beginning. Obviously maybe they were the only ones who knew about it. But how did it transition into strangers? I mean, what was that experience like, where you kind of had your first order of pies from strangers? Do you remember that moment?
I have a really bad memory, but I just remember. You remember it?
Yeah, it was just on Instagram. I mean, with the power of Instagram, then.
Well, I remember asking friends and family, "Hey, can you post about this?" Especially my sister-in-law, she had a lot of followers. I mean, 500. Not that many. So that was a lot. And I was like, "Hey, will you just share this?" And so she shared it, and I just, through me just asking people to share it, is how I started getting people that I didn't know, and they were all local people around where we lived. But yeah.
What were you posting? Were you just posting? Were you making a pie and then taking a picture of it and just posting it up? What were you posting?
Yeah, I was just posting, I would decide what I'm going to make that week, because I didn't do it every single day. And so I'd be like, okay, this is the lineup of the things I'm going to make. And then I'd post and be like, okay, this is what I have. Place your order. I literally would have people comment on my Instagram post. I'd be like, this is what I have, and tell me what you want. And they would order on that post. So it was
Wow.
very basic. There was not a lot involved, but it works.
And our storefront was our front porch.
Yeah.
And our POS, point of sale, was cash. That was it. We're just front door. No square or anything or height. It was just the old school.
So where did it where did it start to kind of ramp up and go from there? Where did it get to the point where you kind of started to think, well, this, maybe we shouldn't only take cash, or maybe we shouldn't only
Yeah.
sell from our front porch? Like, how did it get to that point?
Well, like I said, when more and more people started to come, and I asked her if she thought she really wanted to do this, we started looking at a storefront. Really, we just looked at that moment in time. We said, well, social media, especially through Instagram, there's just enormous opportunity for marketing, right? Free marketing. And then you combine that with, there was a lot of, with e-commerce using Shopify and some other things, you can actually get an online storefront really fast. And so we actually thought of this model about what if it's take and bake meals and ready to eat desserts. What if we developed a model where people could just order online and we can deliver it ourselves, right? This is before DoorDash, where we said, let's just deliver it ourselves to their home. So now people can just order from their phone and get it delivered to them. Can we make that work? So I remember we tested that out, and I was a delivery man in my car, and we just, within like a 5-mile radius, just said, let's see, A, how many people order, and B, how long I can make 10 deliveries, right, in this space. And we made every delivery within 8 minutes of each other. And I did the math, and I was like, this will work. We only did one test. We're like, hey, this model will work. So let's do that. And so that's kind of where that idea started.
Yeah. And from day one, we never wanted it to be like this little local mom and pop like pie shop. We wanted it to be something that was more innovative, using technology. We wanted to grow and become a national brand. From day one, we wanted to be able to deliver our products. So we tried from day one to really utilize technology. Yeah.
Wow. So that's really interesting. So I was actually talking to a video guy the other day, and he was kind of considering, oh, should I do a video agency? How would I do it? He's mostly nervous about like systemizing his process so that it's more productized, if you will. And because he's thinking the way that he's used to doing it is like completely custom. Every single client that he gets, it's like very, very custom and high touch, high whatever. But, I mean, exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I said, okay, well, think about if you were to have 100 clients, if you were to have 200 clients, how would you go about fulfilling all of those? And really the answer is like, you really need to have kind of your systems down. You need to have more of a productized model and think with that end in mind so that you can develop the right product, the right system, so that, you can scale when that time eventually does come. How did you, I mean, you said you kind of had that end in mind, that you did want to go national. You would become kind of this bigger brand, not mom and pop, highly customized, high touch shop. With that end in mind, how did you kind of maybe start to prepare yourself or line yourself up for, I don't know, more of a productized service, or, a scalable model, if you will?
Yeah, man, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of things that you do.
I think a lot of it was trial and error. We tried a lot of different things until we really found the right product mix. But yeah,
I will say this from the beginning, and I think you'll appreciate this. You really can't underestimate the power of a good brand, right? And so we invested a lot of time and money in developing a brand that we felt like could be a national brand, right? That people would look at. And it's interesting, just from your logo, your name, your website, those things are important. And a lot of people push it off to the side and say, well, if I just have a great product, but man, people won't walk in the door unless it looks good, unless it looks like it could be good. Let me see. And so we actually invested a lot in that. And I attribute a lot of our early success. People didn't know behind the scenes. We had no idea what we were doing when it was like, how are we going to make this, and how fast, and how we can fulfill these. But the marketing and the branding and our logo, it looked legitimate. And so I think that eliminated a real barrier to entry for our customers to be like, yeah, we can trust them because they look legit, even if they're not quite legit. So that was kind of step one, in my opinion, that you got to sweat that if you're going to start a business. I just think that's really important. Number one. Number two would be, we read and reread the book, The E-Myth, which you've probably heard of that book before. And I still think that that's really the Bible and for entrepreneurs. I love that book. And it is all about systems. And the rule for us was start developing the systems, and you train people to run the systems, and the systems run the business. People, and that sounds weird, right? We're not running the business. People run systems, systems run the business. And so we just tried and tried to do that. Frankly, it took us years to really get to a level where we felt like, was legitimate enough to scale. But
Anything, I didn't mean to cut you off there. And anything else on that note?
Well, no, I mean, that's an interesting story as well, like kind of how we got our systems in place so that we were able to start growing. We were going to start franchising. And it was right up before COVID is when it really started like hit to a head. And Tyler really started doing his research. And he talks about this a lot, but he really went into this idea of lean manufacturing and did his study and research on it. And so we transformed all of our systems and to be lean manufacturers. And we were able to, how much did we were able to double our production?
Yeah, we were able to double our production. So decrease our costs to produce and double our production with the same amount of people over, just a few months period of time. And so those things are like, well, oh my gosh, it's those principles work. And that's a whole other story.
But he figured that out. And then we were like, okay, great. Now we can make more food, but we don't have that many customers. We're just sitting here like with extra time. And then COVID hit, and then we exploded during COVID. And we had more people trying to get on and order our product than ever before. We make like 3 days worth of product and then put it all online at once, and it'd sell out within like seconds. It was insane. But our processes and our systems were set up and ready to go. And that kind of is what launched us into the next phase of our business.
Can you dive a little bit deeper into the whole lean manufacturing philosophy? I feel like, first of all, most people making pies aren't thinking about pies in this way, and that's very impressive. And frankly, probably most business owners are probably not looking at lean manufacturing in the way that they probably need to be implementing it into their business, especially in the early phases, prepping for scale or whatever that is. What can you tell us, like just diving more into that lean manufacturing, what you were learning, what really kind of propelled you and set you up for really a sonic boom in 2020?
Yeah, man. So I have to limit what I share because this will be really long and boring podcast. So I would say, lean, it's really lean thinking. And there's so many, like if you type in lean into like a business, like an Audible, lean, you'll get so many different books on it. And so it's not like it's hidden. It's not like it's a secret. And it doesn't just apply to manufacturing goods, even though that's really what it's was applied to. But I think when it comes to lean thinking, it's really just lean thinking is this. It's the continuous improvement by elimination of waste. Okay? Continuous improvement through elimination of waste. And so there are so many principles that I could share, but that's really, if you're going to have a solid definition of lean, that's what it is. So how does that translate to anything that you're doing? If you're a digital marketer, if you're manufacturing pies, if you're making widgets, okay, the process to deliver value to your customer, okay, there's a value stream. And your value stream to deliver value to your customers is completely different than my value stream of delivering a pie to my customer. But it's a value stream. And the steps that you take to deliver value to your customer, you evaluate that entire value stream, and then you eliminate unnecessary steps. And as you eliminate waste or eliminate steps, then the product or the service, the value increases. Not only does the value to the customer increase, but eliminating that waste decreases cost, decreases time, etc. And so I love to say that that's actually what I believe the purpose of our lives are, is continuously improving by eliminating waste. You think about all the time that you waste in your life. The bad things that we do in our lives, and we all do them at various degrees, is waste. It's just waste. You can call them sins, you can call them habits, but as you eliminate those, it's not like you just eliminate them and you are in stasis. When you eliminate waste, inevitably you improve. And business is the same way. And that was the beautiful thing that we learned. It's like, wait a minute, why are we doing all these things? And we're like, that's unnecessary. That's unnecessary. That's unnecessary. And as we eliminated those things, that's how we're able to produce twice as much with the same amount of people in half the time. And so that's kind of a snapshot of understanding lean in any business that you do. I promise you will transform your business because it'll transform the value you give to your customer. So,
Well, and I think another principle with lean that we like just put into like everything we try to do was one piece flow. So we, with pot pies and making things, it's like very much a batch and queue. You make a lot and you batch it. And with lean, what really transformed us was one piece flow and trying to not batch everything that we did.
yeah, that's a discussion. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I almost named this podcast Optimized or Optimization, something along those lines. And in digital marketing, that's really what it's all about is optimizing your campaigns, your conversions, whatever it is. And it's all about that. I feel like as you were talking, I feel like you need kind of an overarching set of principles or values that allow you to decide what is waste and what is optimizable, or where kind of you prioritize these areas of improvement. How do you and maybe this is maybe a very difficult question to ask, but how do you go about even establishing those set of principles or set of values? I'll start there, and then I have some other follow-up questions. Does that make sense?
I would say the first thing is when I started to learn more about lean, I think Lean Thinking was one book that had the most impact. It took me 4 times. It's really hard read and it's really, really boring.
What's the book?
Lean Thinking.
Lean Thinking
by, I'll look it up and you can tag it here.
Cool.
That was one. 2 Second Lean is another one that was really kind of like a lean for dummies that got me in really quick. Lean Thinking was like, the next level course. Took me 4 times to read the book till I really understood the concepts. And I won't get into it now, but you have to do the work. But the principles in there, and I won't share all of them, but there's one that's really interesting called they call 8 sins of waste. And the mother sin that starts them all is overproduction. So when you're manufacturing product, if you overproduce it, it leads to 8 different kinds of waste. You have to store it. You have to transport it. You have to rework it. I won't go through all 8, but the number one is overproduction. So in anything you're doing, if you're producing content or value, if you try to batch those up and you don't do just one at a time, then you will absolutely have waste. And so that's kind of where you start with is when you're delivering a product or service to a customer, it's got to be as much as possible one piece flow, because you want to eliminate all the waste that will inevitably come by batching and queuing. That's probably the base. That's probably a starting point where you can and doing that. There's a lot of other principles that are clearly outlined in Lean Thinking. The Toyota Way is really another book, and this is what it is. Lean is also called the Toyota Production System, or TPS. Taiichi Ohno of Toyota back in, I think, the 50s is the one who developed Lean Thinking. And it was really the opposite of the mass manufacturing that we do here, mostly in the United States, is you batch up 1 million products and you send them out. And he said that's wrong. He said you have to do one at a time, not 1 million at a time, one at a time. And that sounds crazy to us, but I promise you it's the right way because it eliminates waste. So those would be the basis of Lean, I guess, the base principles.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of put a disclaimer that, this is going to be so boring, or like, we don't want to get fully into it. I would nerd out with you on this all day. Have you guys read The Essentialist or Essentialism, Greg McKeown? He kind of breaks these principles down, I feel like, in good alignment on a personal level. I think he's a Stanford guy, but look up is it the essential? It's essentialism, but it's along the same lines on a more of a personal level. I use that as a Bible. If I ever go and hire someone, I want to make sure that they are an essentialist thinker. It's again eliminating waste, optimizing, and kind of having those core principles that you operate around, so you know what to say yes to and what to say no to, and how to rid yourself of the things that are not producing the ROI. I'm a media buyer by profession, by trade, and people hand me their money. And so I've spent the past decade of my life, really, not to give a bad analogy, but with a gun to my head saying, here's my money, make a return or else. And so I have to think in this way now. That's how I've thought my whole career really. And all of this is touching on such a relevant point for me. And I know many of our entrepreneurs listening here. So, that is beautiful. It sounds like a superpower behind each of you and really Crust Club. Any last thoughts or points on that before we kind of dive into the next section here?
No, I'll go for too long if you ask.
Okay. One last thing before we go to the next question that I have here, but you mentioned, especially when you're talking about like the branding thing, like, it kind of was your way to show that you were legit, yet you were still dealing with, especially in the early stages, the point of feeling like, oh, I hope they think we're legit. I hope do we even know we're for legit kind of thing. How did you overcome that feeling of, call it imposter syndrome or whatever you want to call it, just because I know that so many of the entrepreneurs that I talk to, whether they're just starting out, whether they're doing 10K a month, 100K a month, there's still this like lingering, am I going to get found out? Am I an imposter in this whole thing? Like, when is this thing going to crumble? Yeah, I mean, how did you to kind of overcome, if you even had those feelings of, imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
I think that it's an ongoing thing. Like, I don't think I've overcome it. I still feel like, what am I doing? Am I even legit? Even now in our second business, I still feel like there's something to prove, and there's maybe even more to prove now. So that's an ongoing thing for me.
I still have imposter.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a successful exit, which we're really blessed and thankful for. But man, I have imposter syndrome every day. I don't know if that'll ever go away, but I do have a thought. You can keep going, but I do have a thought about your question as well.
Well, go ahead.
There we go. Yeah. So I think so I should add a caveat. The whole fake it till you make it. What you can't fake is whether or not the product that you're giving to your customer is valuable. You can't fake that. So if you're not legit, if you look legit, but maybe you're not quite legit, what do I mean by that? What I'm saying is you have to make a decision, and this is tough, especially if you don't have much funding in the early days, is you cannot optimize. You cannot prioritize your profitability on a per piece basis, for example, by jeopardizing the value or the product for the customer. Okay. So for example, let's talk about pies, right? If we had to spend a little bit more because we didn't have economies of scale yet, if we made less per pie because we couldn't get the ingredients for cheap enough or package it or deliver it for low enough, we didn't compromise on the quality to the customer. You cannot do that. You have to take it, just say, you know what, we're not making what we need to make on this right now, but we're going to grind it out, do things like lean until we can. But I think a lot of people do that backwards, right? And so if you have an online automation system that you develop, but you can't afford to pay a developer to automate it, guess what you do? You spend your time, 8 hours a day, behind the scenes, putting in the automation so it looks like automation for your customer until you can afford to do it. They don't know it. Nobody knows that you sat there and you coded that thing or you copied and pasted it, but it doesn't matter. You tell the customer what you're going to do and you do it, and then you go through all the pain to try to back into optimizing it so then you can make your money. So that's a tough lesson, man, but the customer's got to come first. They'll pay you back. Might be a month, might be a year, but you got to figure that out. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. I totally get that. Yeah, I have many experiences like this. Do any come to mind for you? Do you have any funny kind of experiences of trying to kind of bridge that gap until you actually made it happen?
I delivered pies for years, man. So I was trying to run the business, and if somebody needed something and we had a system that fell apart, I was jumping in a van, and people would seem to come to the doorstep, and they'd be like, "Hey, I saw Tyler deliver my pie. You know, we're
Because he'd be on social media, so they'd
you know,
recognize his face.
they'd be like, how come Ty delivered it?" And I'm like, "Because, man, you wanted it at this time, right? Yeah, okay. Well, our guy called in sick. I went and took it. You know, you got to do that stupid. It's not stupid. It's important, but you have to give them what they want. But that's probably a dumb example. I don't know if you think
That's awesome.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I remember pulling an all-nighter making pies the night before was it Thanksgiving? I don't know what it was, like sleeping on the office floor, like you just do whatever it takes and nobody knows. It was just two of you back there making all this stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What's your story? You don't want to share it?
No, I have many of these types of stories. And a recent one actually comes to mind. I think in the digital space, you can get away with like very rapid testing and like kind of putting up a program or an offer, as we call it, and then, saying, oh, if you want this thing, like it's, $50, $100, whatever, like opt in, whatever. And so, I'm always testing stuff, comment the word or DM the word webinar if you want to learn my webinar secrets. And then, but I don't have the automations built out. I might not have the course built out. I might not have the program built out. I'm just gauging interest. I'm trying to see. So I have people opt into those things from time to time, and I have to kind of come back and say, oh, dang it, I need to go like hurry and, spend an all nighter creating a course or a program that I basically said that I had. And it's always awesome, of course, but it's me emailing them, trying to sound a little bit like it's like an automated email, like thanks for opting in, like, you're going to get your program shortly. Meanwhile, that was literally me emailing them and then like going on the back end, like hurrying up and like, trying to program all this stuff, or like, me filming, all these videos. And I'm like, dang it, man, I need to not do that again. But it's
done, right? When there's that pressure there, get it done.
Yep. Okay, so one thing I kind of skipped over, but just like in those early days, Tyler, you were working your job. Val, you were kind of like, like kind of testing the waters a little bit. But at what point did you really decide, okay, it's time to go all in on this? Like, what really was the tipping point where you decided that, and what signs did you see that allowed you to even make that decision?
Well, I think it was kind of a little bit of a gradual decision, because I started getting more customers than I could handle. And then we thought, okay, maybe we'll build out a commercial kitchen in our basement. And so that would be like the next step. And then as we started going through that process, we realized like that would be a nightmare. And so for us, then the next thought, okay, well then what if we opened up a real location? And so it's just kind of like that process where we just started looking into things. And then it was just like, okay, we're going for it. We're all in.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of did, right?
Yeah. I mean, once you sign a lease, right? Once you sign a long-term lease on a location and commit to the equipment and the build out and everything like that, I mean, that's a pretty good indication that like, hey, we're doing this thing. You're not backing out of that. You got to make it work or you're going to be sunk. And so that was the beginning of it. I worked for about a year on both, right? I do my day job, and then I'd work on Crest Club mostly at night at lunches and every time I could fit it in. Well, Val worked full time there. But after that year, that's when I approached my business partners. I was in real estate. I had a couple of business partners, and I approached them and said, hey, I'm going to quit and go sell high. And they were like, and this was like the height. I mean, real estate was really taking off and we were doing great. And they're like, you're crazy. I'm like, I know, but I just feel compelled to do it. So after a year, that's when it really was official is when I came on board full time, and off we go. That was the end of 2017.
Wow. What is validation to you?
To me, it's the reaction and the comments from we call them customers or customers or whatever business we're doing. When we started out, we didn't I just wanted to make a really good product. I just wanted to share what I was good at. And we started getting so many people commenting, saying like ordering our product to send to loved ones who had a loss in the family or had something that they needed, and just seeing those comments, it was really like, okay, we're providing something of meaningful value to these people. And so obviously money is validation, but knowing that you're creating something that people are taking and using and it's become a part of their family and their life, that's really validating.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's really fun. I don't need to say anything else on top of that. It's, starting a business, selling a product or a service, and I'm sure you experience this. It's really interesting to create something and having in your mind what it is, and your customers taking it and using it how they want it, and you not having any idea, right? But seeing how people take it and use it. And like Val said, I think when I had, a lady in our shop who was just like crying, so thankful that she had like a miscarriage, right? And her sister sent her meals for like 2 weeks from Crust Club, and she's like, my family just lived off of Crust Club, and I was a mess. She's like, I was sick, and we were suffering from the loss, and she's just crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're making an impact. It's really cool.
Obviously, you guys, kind of a theme that keeps coming up in this conversation is really the effort that you put into the product. I mean, obviously, each of you are very business minded, but you clearly not only had a talent for building and making pies in the beginning, but just your, I don't know, kind of perpetual drive to improve the product and create, and just a commitment to create really, really great product. I don't know what kind of went into that, and how did you maintain that, especially through scale, or I don't know, I'm sure there were times where you might, I don't know, have been tempted to compromise that, or what, can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I'm a perfectionist, and I feel like everything that I put out there is a reflection of me. And so if we ever got like negative comments, even if, like, I always took it very personally. And so it's like this fear of like, I have to do the best thing because I don't want anyone to not have a great product. And it was also just, we always started with the customer. Like, even if we made mistakes, even if we fell, our customers, for the most part, were always understanding and loyal because we put them first and we let them know that we cared about them. And, I had the opportunity to work with another company, and it was very dramatic, the difference in what I thought was just normal of you put the customer first and you think about them and what they need first, and then everything else follows. And that was not their focus. And I was like, whoa, this is very strange for me, because that's just what we always tried to do. We weren't perfect at it, but that's what we always tried to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you guys, obviously, we heard a little bit of the fairy tale ending and where this is all going. Spoiler, there was an exit, but before that point, obviously on your way to scaling and all of that, was it always sunshine and rainbows?
No, it was really hard. I mean, there was one point where we thought we weren't going to make it. We had a really crazy thing where we wanted to do nationwide shipping. We spent so much time putting it all together, and we thought this is how we're going to grow. We hired another company to help store and ship our product, and they failed majorly, and we lost out so huge. And we're like, we didn't know how we're going to dig ourselves out of this. And, that was probably one of the biggest low points, but it was just a lot of testing, and we never wanted to franchise. We always thought we can't do that because we'll lose control. We won't be able to keep the quality of our product up. How are we going to grow this? That was always our biggest issue, is how are we going to grow this? How are we going to get this to our customer? And through that experience with COVID and lean manufacturing and all of those trial and errors, we figured out how we could produce our product and how we could replicate that. And so we were finally in a spot where we were like, okay, we're going to start franchising. First we decided to build out a drive-through. And the second we opened it up, it was successful. And we're like, okay, this is our pathway forward.
Yeah. There's a phrase. Oh, are you done?
No, go.
So, there's a phrase that slowly, then suddenly, right? You heard that phrase before, especially in business?
No, I like that though. That sounds cool.
There's the hockey stick. There's like all these analogies. It's the hockey stick.
Yeah.
Right? There's the bamboo tree analogy where everything's building underground and then it shoots up. But slowly and then suddenly, and that was it for us. A couple of quick lessons, because we had in our minds, and I always say this to Val, that you can't get romantic about your business, meaning, you have a vision of what you want it to be. And a lot of times you think we're going to make it that way no matter what. And we did that for a long time. We had this vision of nationwide shipping, and this is how we're going to grow. And we're never going to do brick and mortar. We're going to do things our way. And we probably should have been a lot more humble in the beginning and just said, hold on a minute. Let's just ask our customers, how do they want the product? How are they using it? Even if it's really hard, if they'd have come back and said, we want brick and mortar drive-through locations where we can do a quick pickup and have it delivered quickly, right? That was the answer. Wish I would have learned that less than 4 years ago, 4 years before we did, because we were successful in growing, but the value of Crust Club increased exponentially the moment we opened that drive-through in both profitability and scalability, et cetera, et cetera. And, it took us years to find that out. And most entrepreneurs, it will take years to figure something out. But now I think we've learned that lesson. Let's not get romantic. Let's just figure out how they really want it and then get to that point, because all the value really came in the end, right? We were grinding, and then it was like, boom. Oh, this is it,
How did you know to do the drive-through? What prompted that?
There was a lot of things. One of it was lean. So there's another lean principle. So the best place to produce a product is as close to the customer as possible. Okay. So the best place to produce a product. So we thought the future was shipping product, always delivering it, et cetera. But when I understood that, well, the customers are out about driving. If we can get them to drive by the building to a drive-through, and we can manufacture, produce that product as close to that window as possible in a one-piece flow, what will happen, lean says, is your cost will go down, the value will go up, and that means you'll have more money. Profitability goes up, and our profitability absolutely skyrocketed with that drive-through. I mean, it was dramatic. Our costs went down, profitability went up, and when we were purchased by, we'll talk about the exit, that's why, because they look at the numbers and it was like, holy cow, if you can build one of these everywhere, these are really good numbers. We can skip. So that was probably Genesis's understanding. Oh my gosh, we got to make this. We can't make it in their home. How can we make it really close to them so they can just grab it? And that was a natural transition.
And I really wanted it to be drive-through because I knew who our customer was, because I was like, the majority of them are moms or men picking up food on their way home from work, and we need a drive-through. And so that's what we pushed forward. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so where did you go from there? Did you eventually open up another location? What did it look like at that point? You kind of basically you hit the jackpot with this hypothesis, this guess that we should try this drive-through, works really well. Where did you take that information?
Well, we looked at all of our history and all of our numbers, and we found the pockets where we had the most customers. And so we found other locations in those places, and we signed leases on 2 other locations. And I had always been very resistant to the thought of franchising, because we had worked with another company who was a franchise, and we sold our products through them. And it was very hit or miss. Some locations were awesome and some were terrible. And so I was like, you lose control. I don't want to franchise. But then when we opened up our drive-through, we realized the fastest way to get our customer, who we'd been promising for years and years that we're going to get to them, would be to franchising. So we put leases on 2 other locations. In the meantime, we decided we're going to franchise. And Tyler planned. He said, we're going to take 3 months and we're going to get everything in order, make sure our books are aligned and everything is right. And then we're going to start this franchising process. And then literally to the day when that 3 months was up and we were ready to go, and is when Crumble came knocking and said, hey, we love your concept and we want to meet with you. So it was kind of like we were preparing for the next step, but we didn't realize that what the next step was actually going to turn into.
Yeah.
Wow. So for the listeners, this is Crumble Cookie. And yeah, I guess let's start to kind of dive into as much of that story as you're able to tell. I mean, they kind of start approaching you, looking at what you're doing here? What did that whole conversation look like, and how did that story unfold?
Well, they loved our concept. They wanted to expand into dinners, family dinners. They really love family and bringing people around the table. And so they loved the concept. They thought it fit well. They looked at a couple other brands and they thought we were the right fit. And so when they approached us, we had no idea what they wanted to talk about with us. We're like, oh, maybe they want to collaborate on something. Who knows? And they said, we love what you're doing. We want to acquire you. And Tyler and I were just kind of like shocked. But in that moment, I knew that the answer would be yes. I absolutely, like, it just came over me and I knew that this is what we needed to do, which was crazy because I was always very resistant. Tyler always talked about, we're going to sell Crust Club someday. And I was like, no, it's my baby. Like, I'm going to do Crust Club forever. But in that moment, I knew that the door was open and this is what we needed to do. And so they wanted me to stay on as a part owner with them. And then Tyler would leave completely and be able to do his own thing. And so I stayed on with them. We sold in October of 2022. And I stayed on with them for 8 months. And it was not the right place for me to be. And so I had to decide what I wanted, because I wanted to grow Crust Club forever, but it just wasn't the right fit. And so I had to make the decision to leave the thing that I loved to pursue something else. So then I left about 8 months later and we started something new together again.
Anything else to add there in terms of what that exit looked like and lessons or anything there?
Yeah, I think that, I guess there's a few lessons is, that we've had a few, the definition of luck, is opportunity, preparation meets opportunity, right? That's the definition of luck, and at least with some people. And that's really been the case for us with COVID and that whole explosion. That was definitely the case. And then with this acquisition was the case, because had we not been preparing for something different, we never would have, A, had the transition been that smooth, or B, had the exit be as much as it was, because the value of our company after those 3 months showing, like I'll give you an example. We were operating at about 30% profit for a drive-through to have that much. And also our sales were really high. That's kind of unheard of, to be at that kind of profitability, is to be at 30%. I know that doesn't sound impressive with other businesses, but for food, 20% is usually the golden rule. To get 30 is unheard of. And so because we're so valuable, we were able to do an exit. And so it was, I don't give the exact number, but it was a multi-million-dollar exit. And man, that was just, preparation meeting opportunity. You can't predict the opportunity, but you can control your preparation. And if you do that, eventually something will happen. Good things will happen. And that was a lesson we learned there. So
that's awesome. In startup land, the exit is the holy grail. It's what, all these young up and coming entrepreneurs look at as like, the ultimate thing. Just a kind of a fun thing, but did you guys have any splurge moments of, did you finally go on that vacation, or finally, I don't know, do something kind of fun there, or I mean.
Yeah, well, we built a pool in our backyard, so that's kind of fun for our kids. So that was fun, but I don't know, like, it was really exciting and so grateful for everything that happened. I wouldn't change it, but it wasn't like we sold and then like our whole lives changed. It almost kind of was a little bit of the opposite. It kind of got really hard after. For me, it was really hard. Just the whole transition of working with Crumble and then leaving, that was a really, really tough thing for me to go through. And with Tyler, like, he went from like having all this purpose and meaning to now, like, he was going to start a new business, but it's kind of like, what is my day? What do I do? And so we don't do well with just having time to ourselves. Like, we're just constantly working and thinking of things. And so it was awesome, but at the same time, it's not like, hey, you have this massive amount of money in your bank account and all your troubles go away.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. which sounds kind of like a downer, right? It's like, oh, there are some absolute, short-term and long-term blessings that we see and that we have experienced, but I don't know. There's nothing that will replace having a purpose, right? Carrying a load. Like everybody wants to unload everything. I want to be comfortable. It's like, no, you don't. The moment that you be comfortable, you would go finding something to throw on your back again. It's who we are. That's who we are. And, I just, what's the next challenge? And this new business that we're doing is like, we have no business doing this new business because we don't have experience in it. Some things we do, but a lot we don't. That's the point. That's the point, is you go and do something that you're not capable of doing, and then you got to go read a book like Lean Thinking 4 times and figure it out. And that's where we're at right now. So, yeah.
That's funny. I talked to a guy out here again. I mean, he had a big old exit, and I was so excited for him and kind of asking him about it. And he's like, man, to be honest, like, I'm kind of depressed. Like, I don't really know who I am anymore. I don't know like what my purpose is. I don't know. And, he's kind of trying to find his way. And I mean, it's like, man, that is like a crazy amount of high 8-figure exit money. And yeah, I mean, it's, just very interesting. It's maybe, so I mean, along that note, I mean, you just described what that was like for you. How have you been able to find purpose, and how have you been able to kind of just find yourself in this next phase of life and of business? Because obviously that was a dramatic change. What has that looked like for you?
Well, just starting our new business has been, I mean, the biggest thing is what gets us up every single day. And it's something that we think about 24/7. It's like Crest Club all over again, but now backed up with all this knowledge and experience. And we still have so much we need to figure out and learn that we don't know, but it's really exciting being in a different position with this new company. But yeah, it gives us all, for me, that's all my purpose. I mean, other than besides like family and the real purpose in life, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, for me, there's two things. One is I don't do any formal business coaching as far as I don't charge people or anything like that. But I've had quite a bit of people that I've met with, both in this industry and different industries, that I've been able to coach and help, and sometimes on a regular basis and not. And so for me, man, I find like a ton of purpose in that. In fact, when we had the exit, we talked a lot, and I said, I love teaching, and I love people, and I love business. And I thought, maybe this should just be my path here on out, is just share what I've learned, right? And help other people. And that's probably the most fulfilling thing. But we thought about it, we talked about it, we prayed about it, and we felt like our journey as far as building wasn't over yet. And so I think the coaching or the training or whatever it is for both of us will be there at some point, whether it be formal or informal. But right now, we just felt the same thing. We felt compelled or called to say, we have to build something else. And this is what it is. Peachy is what it is. And so, yeah, man, it's such a hard combination of, I have purpose and meaning, but it's also kicking my butt and it's painful. Like, do I want this? Yeah, I do. Okay, I get up and get going again.
We know it'll be worth it. We know that it'll come together in the end, but it's all that grinding up front that it's like, okay, let's do this again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's awesome. Can you talk to us a little bit about what this new startup is, this new project, this new business is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to kind of give a quick background of where the idea came from. So when Tyler left Crest Club, he started pursuing another business. But then when I left Crest Club for good, we both just had this overwhelming feeling that this idea that I had previously was what we really needed to do. So I created I've had recipe blogs. I've created like self-published recipe books. And I did this one. It was a Christmas desserts recipe book. And I spent all this time making it. I cranked it out in like 2 months, did all the work myself. And when I was done, I was so tired. And it was awesome. People loved the book, but I was like, I never want to go through that again. But I still want to create Christmas dessert recipes. Where am I going to put those? Because I don't want to make another book. And so this idea came to me where it's like, I need a place where I can continually add recipes, and it's like a living recipe book. And so that's where the idea of Peachy came from. And being in the recipe blogging world, I just realized how broken the system is for both the recipe creator and the recipe user, because the creators, if they're lucky, they get paid really well, but it's very few and far between. Most of them are making just pennies, and their blogs are filled with all these ads. And for the user, it's a terrible experience. You go to get a recipe and it's filled with all these ads that you have to deal with. And then the physical recipes, you're usually like a recipe creator, they want a recipe book deal as like the biggest thing you can achieve as a recipe creator, but you lose control and you don't probably make very much money off of it. And then the user has to buy a book of all these recipes that they probably won't use. And I'm like, people need one piece flow. You need to be able to create a recipe, get it to the people who want it, and then they need to be able to consume it without all of this distraction, all this garbage.
Waste.
It's waste.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to take the whole recipe space and eliminate all this waste and just really streamline it and give people a way to consume and to also share recipes without all that waste. So, and that's where Peachy came from. So yeah.
So I think there's a lot of different punchlines, but I think what we're trying to build is people want to find and save and organize and share recipes digitally. It's so convenient to do that with technology, but they still want to use recipes in their kitchen physically. They don't want that. So we're trying to blend those two together where we say, use Peachy to digitally find, save, share, organize, etc. But then all those things can also be converted into, we print off recipes on demand and send them. So now you have, and they're like washable. So they're
Like this
waterproof, right?
synthetic paper, it's washable. So like you don't have to worry
Wow.
about recipes and yeah.
So they can order what they want, and then they have a place where in their kitchen they can constantly use that, and so it's really doing that. Digital has its purpose, physical has its purpose. We're trying to blend those things together, and that doesn't really exist anywhere. We looked and no one's doing that, and we feel like that's what the market wants and what it needs. So that's what we're trying to break into right now.
That's amazing. So where exactly in the business are you right now? Are you pre-launch? Are you launch? Are you beta? Where kind of are you in that journey currently?
Yeah.
We are launched, but we're in like the very beginning stages of launch. So we have a full functioning website. It's working great, but it's like all of the features and things we really want are still being developed. And it's not an app yet. We're working on an app. So it's very beginning stages, but it's up and running. So, yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
So where it's a website, so you can probably do about 15% of the things that we really want you to do with the website now. So it's valuable, but we'll be building out a lot more, which will get you closer. And then when the app's done, you'll be almost all the way there. So, give us a few more months and the app will be released. And I think you'll be able to see what you can really do with it. So that's where we're at.
Awesome. What's the website?
So it's Peachy, IE at the end, PEACHIE.recipes.
Okay. Awesome. All my money hungry internet entrepreneurs will be checking that out, getting the recipes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One consistent and best of luck. I mean, that's kind of crazy. You would think that, you made it, you did it, but now you're on to the next thing, and that's good for you. That's super awesome. Best of luck. One piece of advice that I've heard pretty consistently, especially because I've done businesses with my dad, I've done businesses with my best friend, but people are constantly saying, don't do business with friends or family or any of that. And you are at the pinnacle of that advice there, being founder, being a couple, a married couple, and having gone through an exit. It still looks like you like each other. How have you been able to navigate that? Especially because for whatever reason, people are so quick to say, don't do business with friends or family or any of that. I mean, yeah, how have you been able to do that?
Well, I think a couple things. One, I would not do business with friends or family because I feel like that could get really dicey. With me and Tyler, I mean, that can get dicey too, but we always have the same vision and purpose. And like, we're in it, like together. Like this thing is either sinking with us both or it's seceding with us both. And so it's like there's no other option for us. And we have the kind of relationship that I don't think a lot of couples have, where it just really works. We have the right kind of balance of what we need and our personalities, but we have our moments. It's not always easy, but we try to keep our communication really open so that we can recover from things quickly and move forward. So
yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot that I could say, but I'll just leave one piece, and it's the same advice that you'd give for any business partner. And this is what everyone says: if you get a partner, make sure that partner is not like you, right? Their strengths are your weaknesses and vice versa. And I think that's, oh man, there's so many entrepreneurs that have that problem where it's like, me and my buddy are both great marketers. It's like, okay, great. Well, who's great with product, or who's an engineer? We don't have that. Well, you got to have that. And we are so different that our strengths are so polar opposite. It's made it simple from a business standpoint because I literally can't do what she does. And she could probably do what I do, but she hates it, right? Things that I do, she hates. And so she's like, I'm never wanting to do that. So we very, very rarely step on each other's toes, hardly at all, other than, do we share the same vision? Yeah. And then we do our work separately. And that has to be the same for any partnership. Just so happens to be that we're married. And so that's one of the reasons why it's worked so well.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So another note that you both touched on actually throughout the interview here that I actually wasn't planning on asking, but you mentioned praying about something or including God somehow in your business. Would you be able to kind of touch on how you've been able to do that? And I mean, this isn't a religious podcast, but I have had a number of people bring up similar types of experiences. And it's something that I'm personally curious about and how to navigate that as a faith-based entrepreneur. But how have you been able to kind of include God, so to speak, in your business and allow that to be a strength for you?
Well, I think not number one, we always put him first. And number two, we don't compromise when it comes to that. The business never comes first. And we never will compromise any decisions we make with that. What would you say?
Yeah. Oh man, I could say a lot about that. Never take credit. Never take credit. I think that, that big exit that we had and what a blessing that was. Don't let it go to your head. Don't for a second take credit and think that you did that. You can say, I did all the work. What do you mean? I did all the work. I did all that. It's like, no, don't ever take credit. That's how I feel. It's not me. It's not me. So just always know the source of where all those things come. And if you stay humble and recognize that, then things will work out. But don't take credit. And that's how I feel about this new business. If we succeed in it, it's not going to be because of us. Not going to take credit for it. And I know that seems like a hard juxtaposition between all the hard work you have to do, but I just view it as whatever he allows me to do, I will try to do, but it's not me that does it, so don't take credit.
Yeah. Don't take credit and don't compromise. Yeah. I feel like those are the two things that we live by.
As we wrap up here, Tyler, earlier you mentioned you love teaching, kind of giving back, coaching younger entrepreneurs or up and comers. For each of you, and this question's for each of you, and there's going to be a lot of lessons, people listening through this whole hour-long conversation, but if you could kind of break down just some simple pieces of advice for these up and comers, for these, internet marketers or business owners, what are the main chapter headings of your book that you would write to these these individuals?
I would think, I guess I'll just share a couple. One is, you got to figure out if you are an entrepreneur, right? And a lot of people kind of lie to themselves. So I'll tell you what that means. So if you're just like, do not use phrases like this. I just want to work for myself, or man, I just want to make a lot of money and see how quickly I can get it, right? I mean, that's really Those are really immature statements. I'll just be frank. They're very immature for somebody who is not seasoned. And for those who've been through it, they understand. Are you willing to dumpster dive? Are you starving enough that you're willing to jump in a dumpster and get food? Now, I don't mean that literally, but I mean in a professional sense. You're going to be climbing through the dumpster and the mud in order to get the glory. And people aren't willing to do it. They want the fancy this and they want the fancy that. And so take a look in the mirror and say, what am I willing to do? How far am I willing to go? How deep? And how much pain am I willing to bear? And I ask people all the time, what's your pain tolerance? What do you mean? How much pain can you endure? Because it's not a matter of if I'm going to endure pain in this entrepreneurial journey. It will be some of the hardest pains you'll ever have. How much can you endure? And I would say, if you can endure it and you can make it through, guess what? You can do anything. Honestly, you can do anything. Most people aren't willing to do that. So ask yourself those questions. What are you willing to do? And that will whittle out majority of people. And the ones remaining are the ones that are like, I'm going to do this no matter what. And those are the people that you love. Those are the entrepreneurs. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. And I think for me, honestly, now having been through what we've been through a little bit, I would be very cautious about who you partner with. And if you take on any funding and losing control, because what do you value? Like, do you value your customer? Do you value being able to run your business in the vision that you see? Because the second you take on partners or any funding, that you got to be prepared that that's going to change. And then you got to be prepared to walk away from that if that's what happens, And so with Crust Club, we didn't take on any funding. We owned the whole thing ourselves. And it was a slow grow because we didn't take on any funding. But it was important for us to be able to have that control and to not give that up. And so just know what you're willing to work with and live with. And just be very cautious about taking things on because it doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to.
Yeah. This is the last thing. When you look at the exit of the business, who we are now and what we know is a lot more valuable than any kind of dollar amount on an exit. And that's the point. That's the point of entrepreneurship. Who you become and what you learn and what you know. That's the payment. And you just got to go through it. The money is a nice side. It's a nice side benefit, but that's really the whole purpose. So.
Wow. Oh man, that's so good. I feel like I've had so many ups and downs in my personal business and entrepreneurship journey. And it's just always like, ups and downs and me promising my wife, this is going to be the one, we're going to make it. And then it doesn't, and it's like, well, every single time it's like, I see now who I become. And just like you're talking about, I mean, that's the point. And so, hopefully I have that hockey stick moment like you, but, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you so much. Tyler, Val of Crust Club and now peachy.recipes, right? Recipes with an S at the end. Thank you so much for joining us and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This was great.